Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
Recording in progress.
لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين عجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف. اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم. اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. خب alhamdulillah, we have tawfiq to continue our study of Al-Fiqh al-Istidlali, the section on fasting, the part on eating and drinking. We are on the page 335, as you can see, and we have some rulings to discuss. من أحكام مفطرية الأكل والشرب. Some of the rulings regarding the fact that eating and drinking break the fasting. The first ruling is about someone who is fasting, but then maybe doctors, for example, need to give him or her something, because this person, for example, cannot eat or drink ordinarily, is patient in the hospital, for example. Okay, can he fast and just receive, some nutritions through, for example, injection, or through, for example, blood, etc. Or maybe when he's not patient but says, for example, okay, I'm not eating and drinking, but in order to make fasting easier for me, for example, I want to see if this is possible. In any case, لو أحدث لشخص منفذ لوصول الغذاء إلى جوفه من غير طريق الحلق. If for a person a hole is made so that food reaches inside body without going through throat, وتناول من, and after this hole is made, then he receives something, he takes something. فلا يبعد الحكم بالمفطرية لصدق الأكل والشرب عرفا آنذاك. It's not unlikely, means it is likely, it is probable to say that this is considered as muftir, it breaks fasting. Why? Because eating and drinking can be applied to this as well. If you have doubt whether mafhumul akl, the concept, the notion of akl, and the concept and notion of shurb would apply to here, then we exercise the principle of al-bara'ah, because this is shubhiyya, mafhumiyya, tahrimiyya. We don't know something is haram or not, we apply bara'ah. لو شك في صدقهما. If a faqih says that this is not eating or drinking, or I am not sure about it, if he says definitely it's not eating and drinking, okay, it's easier. But even if he's in doubt, then فالشبهة مفهومية والمرجع آنذاك هو البراءة. When there is shubhiyya mafhumiyya, you remember we had in usul, shubhiyya mafhumiyya, shubhiyya mistaqiyya. Sometimes our doubt is because we are not sure about the concept. For example, we don't know this is ghana or not. This is sometimes it's mistaqiyah, not because we don't know the mafhum. We know the mafhum, but we are doubtful about mistaq. You have clear definition of ghana, but you don't know mistaq. For example, you say صوت مرجع مطرب is my definition. If you are sure, then sometimes you say, is this mutrab or not? Anyway, we have shubha mafhumiyya, shubha mistaqiyya. Al-marji'u anadhak. If there is shubha mafhumiyya, al-marji' means what we have to refer to is al-bara', asalatul bara'. La yuqal إن المرجع هو الاشتغال. You remember we had something which is preferable to براءة, that is قاعدة الاشتغال. It's أمارة, not أصل عملي. براءة is أصل عملي. قاعدة الاشتغال is prior to that. We say al-ishtiqal al-yaqini yastad'i al-faragh al-yaqini. If you know that something has become wajib upon you and you don't know whether this is implemented by this or not, you have to do whatever possible to make sure that you have done your wajib. For example, you know that on the day of Jum'ah, either you must do Zuhr or Jum'ah. And suppose for faqih there is no enough evidence whether it is Zuhr or it is Jum'ah in the time of Ghaibah. Okay? So we say, al-ishtiqal al-yaqini. Definitely we have to do something. No one can say, on Fridays we don't have any responsibility for Zuhr. Definitely we have to do something. Al-ishtiqal al-yaqini yastad'i al-faragh al-yaqini. Because we all know that our dhimma is mashghul, we know that we have a taklif and have an obligation, we must make sure that we complete it. So if I am not sure it is Zuhr or Jum'ah, I have to do both so that I am sure. Okay, this is al-ishtighal al-yaqini yastad'i al-faragh al-yaqini. Or for example, in the third and fourth rak'ah, suppose faqih doesn't come to conclusion, is it one tasbihat arba'a enough or three? Definitely something is needed here. Is it one or three? Say al-ishtiqal al-yaqini yastad'i al-faragh al-yaqini. So you have to bring three. Sheikh Irwani says, la yuqal. This should not be said, means this argument is not going to be accepted and working, that instead of bara'ah in al-marji'a huwa al-ishtighal. I say inna because for qawl, qala yaqulu, maf'ul is always jumla, so and we say inna. Remember, yeah, qala zaydun inna allaha karimun. You don't say qala zaydun anna allaha karimun. So la yuqal inna al-marji'a huwa al-ishtighal. It should not be said that the principle that which has to be applied here, where we have to refer, is ishtighal. للشك في فراغ الذمة في المقام. This للشك is dalil for those who say marji' is ishtighal. Okay, this is dalil of those people. So no one should say that we have to implement ishtighal. Why? Because we have yaqeen about ishtighal and shak fi faragh al-dhimma, we know that we must fast. For example, it's month of Ramadan, I have to fast. I don't know fasting with this type of situation where I take something from blood vessels, etc. Is it making my fasting void or not? So this causes me worried about bringing wajib, bringing my taklif. Okay, so these people say we have to do ihtiyat, therefore no bara'ah. We have to make sure that we do ihtiyat till we say, okay, alhamdulillah, I did my wajib. خب لا يقال إن المرجع هو الاشتغال. Why? Is يقال, because then this would be said, like, you know, in قلت قلت, then this is the answer why here is not a place for قاعدة اشتغال, why we said it's a place for أصالة البراءة. إذ يقال إنما جزم باشتغال الذمة بتركه قد جزم بفراغها منه، يعني فراغ الذمة منه. Because what we were sure that it's an obligation for us is to refrain from eating and drinking. When you are fasting, tarkul akl, tarkul shurb, and other things, of course, but right now we are talking about eating and drinking. Tarkul akl or tarkul shurb are definitely to be observed. This was yaqini. This person has not eaten or drunk, and so we are supposing that this person doesn't know that this is considered as eating and drinking. What is known, he has observed. What was yaqini, he has observed. إذ يقال إنما جزم يعني ما كان يقينيا باشتغال الذمة بتركه, what was certainly known that our dhimma is engaged to refrain from قد جزم بفراغهم. We are now sure that our dhimma is empty, is free from this taklif. وهو, what was it? What was to be avoided? What was to be matruk? Al-akl. Akl بمفهومه الضيق, akl with the narrower sense and with a limited concept, means you really eat something goes through your mouth to throat, or at least from, for example, if something from nose goes to the throat, but if something is put into my skin or my muscle or my blood vessel, who said I have to avoid this? This is the beginning of mas'ala. Al-akl bimafhumih al-dhayyiq, this is definitely to be avoided. But غير الشامل للمقام, this akl with mafhum al-dhayyiq would not include our case. أما الأكل بمفهومه الشامل له يعني للمقام فلا جزم باشتغالها به. But if you say act in a very wider sense, in a broader sense, including injection, etc., who said that we are sure that we must avoid it? لا جزم باشتغالها به فتجر البراءة عن. In other words, if you want to refer to terminology that we had in usul, we say it's where we have doubt about aqallu aksar. When there's doubt about aqallu aksar, so in ishtiqal, then aqal is definitely the case, but about aksar we are in doubt. So we do bara. maybe you say إن الذمة قد اشتغلت بعنوان الصوم. So instead of putting the focus on ترك الأكل وترك الشرب, if someone says I was sure that I must fast, fasting is the title, is عنوان الموضوع for وجوب. ولا جزم بفراغها من, there is no certainty that I am now free, I have finished صوم في الفرض المذكور, in this case that we discussed. Why this should not be said? Because what is obligatory is not عنوان الصوم, it is the reality of Sawm. Yeah, Sawm looks existential. Yeah, Sawm is existential, but in reality, he says Sawm is tark. Reality of Sawm is tark, and then how much we have to do tark? If you say in addition to tark, there is something higher that with this tark we have to achieve that, then yes, the situation changes. But he says what is applicable to us, what is obligatory, is reality of Sawm, not unwan of Sawm, and that reality is tarkul akl. Okay, this is the first ruling. The second ruling is about putting, inserting, injecting medicine through for example some needles or some injection into hand or leg, anywhere, you know. Normally they put either in hand or, for example, the leg, etc. He says this is not a problem because this is not considered as eating and drinking. إدخال الدواء بالإبرة, إبرة means needle, في اليد أو الفخذ أو نحوهما ليس بمفطر. To inject medicine with needle into hand or leg or the like is not breaking the fasting. حتى لو كان الدواء مقويا, even if this medicine is muqawwi, nutrition. Of course, he distinguishes between this and muqaddi. For example, muqawwi is something which is giving like some strength, some energy, like maybe vitamins. Muqaddi, maybe, for example, you know, water and, you know, sugar, etc., glucose, etc. لعدم صدق عنوان الأكل والشرب على ذلك. Injection is not considered as eating and drinking. نعم قد يشكل بما يسمى المغذي وهو بديل عن الطعام في حالات خاصة. Yes, if this injection is something which is given sometimes instead of food, and it can keep a person maybe for a few days, few weeks alive, it's working like food, then it's mushkil, it's difficult. إذ من الوجيه القول بأن الأكل في كل حالة بحسبها, because it is plausible to say that akl in every condition is different. Sometimes is through mouth, sometimes it's in this way. You are taking what your body needs, what the food of body, normally through eating, drinking through mouth, but you are taking now food in another way, but it is considered as الأكل is من الوجيه. It's reasonable, it's plausible to say أن الأكل في كل حالة بحسبها وبالاستفادة من المغذي في تلك الحالات يصدق الأكل أو الشرب. And by using something which is nutrition in these conditions, akl is happening, shurb is happening. Yes, if someone says no, I am not sure that this is considered as akl and shurb, then براءة. لو شك في صدقهما يعني في صدق الأكل أو الشرب فالمناسب الجواز للبراءة. خب. Now, from what we said about putting, even medicine and nutrition into body through injection, etc., we can understand what is the ruling about putting some drops of medicine in eyes or ears. ومنه يتضح جواز تقطير الدواء في العين والأذن. From this it becomes clear that it's permissible to put drops of medicine in eyes and ears. لعدم صدقهما عليه, because akl and shurb is not applicable, is not said that it has taken place when you put drops. Yes, if you remember, we had two hadiths which said the taste of what is put in the, for example, eyes should not be felt and sensed in the mouth, in the throat. نعم إذا ظهر الطعم في الحلق فقد يشكل, becomes difficult. للروايتين المتقدمتين, because of the previous two hadiths that we had before. حيث اشترطتا, those two hadiths made it a condition. They said there is no problem, but with condition. What was the condition? اشترطتا عدم الوصول إلى الحلق, that kohl, for example, etc., should not reach the throat. Maybe you say, but that was not about medicine, that was not about drops of medicine, it was about kohl, etc. دوهن. We say وخصوص موردهما لا يضر لعدم احتمال الخصوصية. Although their cases were different, but it wouldn't harm, because no one would say that there is a possibility that it was only for kohl or dohn. There is no khususiyya possible here. So you can easily do ta'meem, because we know that this is not about that case. Many times the hadith that we have or the ayat that we have, we do ilqa khususiyat. Ilgha means to cancel khususiyya. For example, sometimes a man asks a question, sometimes a woman asks a question. If faqih finds it possible that this was for men only or for women only, cannot generalize it. But most of the time the rulings are the same. For example, about wudu, if someone makes a doubt in wudu or salah, maybe a man asks this question, maybe a woman asks this question, maybe a child asks this question, maybe someone from village asks this question, but someone from Medina asks this question, someone from Kufa. We do ilqa khususiyat, means we say these details were not relevant. If faqih finds that no, maybe this is really for this case, for example, for this material or for this gender, then that's different. Hona, there is no possibility to say that it's only for kuhl. Sheikh Ilwani says this is if it was only us and the evidence and rules that we have. But according to what Sahib Jawahir has said, our ashab, our Shia scholars, have agreed that this is makruh. This is dislike. When they say this is dislike, it means it's not making fasting void. Yeah, if it was considered as muftir, was haram. So there is ijma, and this ijma must be because of some reason that we have not received. Because if ijma is madraki, then we don't accept it. هذا ولكن الأصحاب اتفقت كلمتهم على الكراهة على ما قيل. So this is ijma manqul. He has not himself investigated, but based on what has been quoted in Jawahir, he says على ما قيل. ولأجله نرفع اليد عن ظاهر الروايتين. And because of this ittifaq, we disregard raf'ul yad. We don't act according to the zahir of those two hadiths. إلا أن ذلك يختص بما إذا كان التقدير في غير الأنف. Okay, whatever we have said so far was about ain and udhun, putting drops of medicine in eye or ear. But if someone puts the drop in nose, this is very difficult because from nose goes inside the mouth. أما فيه يعني إذا كان تقدير في الأنف فيتوجه المنع. Man is وجيه, is plausible. لوجاهة ما تقدم من صدق الأكل أو الشرب على كل ما يصل إلى الحلق ولو من طريق الأنف. Because as we said last session, the previous part, eating and drinking would be applicable to anything that reaches the throat, whether it's through mouth or nose. Ittifaq, the consensus that was quoted by Sahib Jawahir, we are not sure that it includes anf. So that was something that maybe was only for ear and eyes. To have doubt whether it included nose as well. The third ruling is about people who have asthma, and they use this, a small, device, and a kind of spray, a kind of gas comes. Of course, we are not discussing fatwa of maraja. We are discussing fiqh, and according to our author, we are discussing, so people should refer to their maraja. And also here he supposes that it is only gas, but it seems that maybe some types of them, a liquid also may come. Anyway, just we are discussing the scientific side, not the fatwa as such. استعمال جهاز الربو من قبل المصابين به. Rabu means asthma, rabu. Using device of asthma by people who suffer asthma. ليس بمفطر is not breaking fast. حتى بناء على تعميم مفطرية الأكل والشرب لغير المعتاد. Even if we say that what is not ordinarily eaten or drunk is void, making fasting void. You remember, he had the idea that it has to be bil mu'tad, but then for ihtiyat wajib, he said غير المعتاد should be avoided because it's mashhur among ulama. But he says, even if we say akl and shurb with mu'tad and غير المعتاد, both is problem. We generalize to include غير المعتاد. This is not akl wa shurb غير المعتاد. Definitely is not mu'tad. No one eats and drinks like this. And definitely is not غير المعتاد. إذن لأن الأكل عرفان, even akl of something which is not mu'tad, but the action of eating, لا يصدق إلا إذا كان الشيء المتناول جسما كثيفا. عرفان, for in common sense, for public, eating is not applicable unless what is eaten, what is taken, is jisman kathifan. Kathafa means thick. It must be a material which is thick, which is solid. لا ما كان مثل الغاز الذي يخرج من الجهاز المسكون. Not what is like a gas which comes from this device. If gas goes into my mouth, they don't say this is akl. If you are not accepting this, you are not sure, لا أقل من الشك, at least there is a doubt. You cannot say wallah this is the case, for example, or I'm sure this is the case. Who can say definitely gas and a spray is eating? خب لا أقل من الشك, at least there is a doubt. When we have doubt, what we do? أصالة البراءة فيتمسك حينئذ بالبراءة على ما تقدم, as we said before. So we don't know, we don't have any reason to say that this gas which comes from this asthma device is a problem, according to him. And suppose it's only also gas. Number 4, لا محظور في ابتلاع اللعاب وقد نقل عدم الخلاف في ذلك. If someone swallows the liquid which is in the mouth, or the liquid which comes sometimes from the chest to the mouth, or from the brain maybe comes, or nose, of course from brain shouldn't come to the mouth unless goes from throat. But anyway, if something comes to the mouth and someone swallows, what happens? He says la mahadh. Of course we will discuss later about the thick liquid which comes. We will talk about it later. Here in general he says no problem. لا محظور في ابتلاع اللعاب وقد نقل عدم الخلاف في ذلك. It has been said that there is no disagreement about this. وقد يستدل له بوجوه ثلاثة. أحدها القصور في المقتضي. The first thing is again the issue of muqtazi and mani. You remember, muqtazi is not adequate. Muqtazi does not include here. because what we know is that akl and shurb have to be avoided. Akl and shurb are muftir. If you swallow your mouth water, or in Farsi we say buzaq or busaq in Arabic, this is not called akl. إن المفطر هو الأكل والشرب وهما لا يصدقان على ابتلاع اللعاب. ابتلاع means بلع, swallow. ولا أقل من انصرافهما عنه. At least, if you don't say definitely they are they don't include, at least is munsarif. Munsarif, you remember, in one of the beauties of this studying fiqh is that you keep reviewing usul al-fiqh, but you should also do mubahis of your usul al-fiqh so that you are up to date. Sometimes we say something is munsarif. For example, when we say this is my brother, when I say this is my brother, this is munsarif ila to be, for example, my blood brother. In some cases it might be different. For example, if someone who is for example white, someone else is black, or vice versa, and one of them says this is my brother, here it may come to our mind it's my brother in faith. But if there is no such evidence, when someone says my brother, it comes to mind, it means blood brother, biological brother. Or when I say, for example, I owe this person £1,000, it means that I owe him financially, not that he has done some services to me that if I wanted to translate it into financial terms, for example, I say £1,000. He saved me, for example, £1,000. When I say I owe him, and in front of people I admit, then that person can take me to the court and say he admitted that he owes me. So insaraf means that something has maybe more scope, a larger scope, but part of it quickly comes to mind. When we hear it, our mind is munsarif, yansarifu ila this. Our mind is inclined towards this part, this type, this scope, this extent. So either we say it's definitely not including, or we say at least yansarif ila other things, not ila swallowing your own buzaq. ولذا لو نهي المريض عن الأكل والشرب. If someone who is ill, doctor says, suppose we are not talking about religious issues, doctor says to someone who is ill, you should not eat and drink. فلا يفهم من إلا النهي عن تناول الأشياء الخارجية. From this it would not be understood except that this person must avoid taking solid or liquid things from outside. ومع التنزل, if you don't accept that is not included, and if you don't accept insiraf, so if we compromise, فلا أقل من منع الإطلاق في الأدلة. At least we have to say the reasons, the sources that we have no itlaq that would include swallowing your own buzaq. فَتَعُودُ مُجْمَلَةً. If there is no itlaq, then it becomes mujmal. There is no zuhur في عمومية الإطلاقية. وَنَرْجِعُ حِينَئِذٍ إِلَى الْبَرَاءَةِ. Again, we have to refer to bara'ah. What we are sure is food or drink from outside. ثانيها انعقاد سيرة المتشرع. The second, we said there are 3 points, 3 ways of arguing. Mutashar'a, religious people, people who follow Sharia. In our age, our parents, they don't have such, practice that if, there is, some water, in their mouth, then they spit it out, they, throw it, they go to the washroom, every half an hour, for example. There is no such a thing. They don't consider it as eating and drinking. ثالثها إن عدم الجواز يستلزم طرح البصاق بين فترة وأخرى. If we say it's a problem, it's not permissible, you have to tarh, like throw. It's very close to English. To throw, to empty your mouth, now and then. وهو حرجي. This leads to أصل حرج. It's very difficult. فينفى بقاعدة نفي الحرج. So this would be negated with the rule of نفي الحرج. In Islam, we don't have haraj. Anything that is haraji is to be negated. Of course, here there's a discussion in qawaid al-fiqhiyya that when we say there is no haraj, it must be haraj which is not in the legislation itself. For example, jihad is haraji, but we don't say, jihad is negated, or fasting by itself can be haraji. We say something which is additional to the ruling. Yes, Allah in His legislation never asks us to do something which is not possible for majority of people to do. That's another thing. For example, prayer, fasting, hajj, zakat, everything is legislated in the way that majority of people can do, average people can do. If there are people who are ill, for example, okay, they are exempted. But it doesn't mean that there is no legislation which is difficult. No, we have legislation which are difficult, like hajj is difficult, for example, especially in the past. People had to travel. But this is different from haraj, which is additional, which is, for example, wuzu, if it becomes haraji, then you do tayammum. This is the rule about nafyul haraj. So the conclusion is that if there is a liquid in our mouth, we don't need to throw it. Now, Sahibul Urwa rahmatullah alayhi has made tafsil, a distinction. Fima yanzilu min ar-ras, what comes from head. Perhaps he meant nose and brain, I don't know. Anyway, from head. O yakhruju min as-sad, what comes from the chest. So, he said, if these things that come from head or from chest, they have not come into the mouth space. From beyond or behind the throat, they come and go. You don't need, if you, sometimes you cannot, sometimes you can. For example, if it is near your throat, you can split it out. Sometimes you cannot. If you cannot, then it's not a problem. They shouldn't say that it has broken your fasting. But even if you can, if it has not come to the space of mouth, then normally they say it's not a problem. So, but if it is in the space of mouth, then it's different. So, Sahib al-Urwa Sayyid Yazdi, he says, there is a distinction بين ما لم يصل إلى فضاء الفم فأجاز ابتلاعه. The distinction he makes is between something which has not reached the space of mouth, so he permitted to swallow. لعدم صدق الأكل آنذاك. He says akl is not applicable here because not in your mouth. And at least there is doubt. فيتمسك بالبراءة. وما وصل إليه, but what reaches فضاء الفم, in the front, not behind the throat. What reaches to the فضاء of fam, to the space of mouth, فاحتاط بالترك. He says you should throw it away. Why? لشبهة الصدق الأكل, because maybe akl is applicable. ووافقه على ذلك بعض الفقهاء, and some fuqaha also have agreed. Imam Khomeini also has similar fatwa, as far as I remember. But Shaykh Irwani says al-munasib al-jawaz mutlaqa. But he says it seems that whether it has come to fadha al-fam or not, it's permissible. لعدم صدق الأكل, because it's not certainly considered as eating. ولا أقل من انصراف, even if you are in doubt and you say that generally by designation this lugha, this term includes it, at least we can say عرفا ينصرف عن مثل ذلك, means ينصرف إلى شيء آخر. عن انصرف إلى انصرف عن, for example ينصرف إلى أخوة في الدم عن الأخوة في الدين. Okay, so لا أقل من انصراف عن مثل ذلك. The minimum is to say that akl would not be inclining towards something which comes to the mouth. This is not akl from chest or head. مناسب الجواز مطلقا لعدم الصدق الأكل ولا أقل من انصراف عن مثل ذلك لما تقدم في مثال الطبيب. In the example of tabib, it said if tabib said don't eat, don't drink, would not include this. ويؤكد التعميم. Here is the discussion about head and chest. What can be as extra evidence, can support ta'amim, means that it's not a problem, is موثقي قياس ابن إبراهيم عن أبي عبد الله عليه السلام. It's not sahih, but it's موثقي. So there must be a narrator that is not Adl Imami, but altogether this hadith chain is reliable because there is a way to verify the narrators to be truth tellers. لا بأس أن يزدرد الصائم نخامته. This hadith is in Wasa'il al-Shia. You can see in the footnote number 2. لا بأس أن يزدرد الصائم نخامته. نخامة is the thick liquid which comes either from head to the mouth, especially when you have cold, or from the chest. Some people have said no, nukhama is only what comes from head, not from the chest. So he says, بناء على تفسير النخامة بما يعم النازل من الرأس والصاعد من الصدر. If we say, interpret nukhama, that's something, a liquid, thick liquid, which includes what comes down from head and what comes up from chest. وعدم اختصاصه بالصاعد. We don't say it's only what comes up from the chest, because some lughawiyin like Qamus al-Muhit, they say nukhama is coming from the chest. محقق رحمة الله عليه, محقق hilli, صاحب شرایع, is opposite, but we are not sure, he's not nas, but zahir of kalam muhaqqiq is that nukhama is what comes from head down to the mouth or throat. In any case, if we take this nukhama general, it means that there is no problem that is swallowed. There's no problem to swallow this. So this confirms what Sheikh Irwani said, that al-munasib al-jawazu mutlaqa. Munasib is that whether it comes to the mouth space or not, it's okay. Whether it's from head or from chest, it's okay. Inshallah, next session we talk about whether we need to brush the teeth and empty the small spaces between the teeth in case there are remaining parts of food or not, because the question is, if they later come out and go down, are they considered as akl and shurb or not? Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.
Thank you very much, Sheikh. If we have time for questions, I will open it up to anybody in the class who would like to ask.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa
Assalamu Rashid.
Salamat bash.
Just a quick question going back to the third ruling about using an inhaler for a person who has asthma. If we say that there are, let's say, if there are droplets that are emitted from the inhaler, and then we say, okay, غير معتاد is muftar, can't we go back to the rule that says even if it's a tiny particle when you're eating something, then like the bab, I think, I don't remember the term that was used, then even something as small as that would not be acceptable?
If it is considered as shurb, then according to ihtiyat wajib, it has to be avoided, because Sheikh Irwani's idea was that غير المعتاد is not a problem. شرب غير المعتاد is not a problem. Certainly this drop is not mu'tad, it's not what people drink ordinarily. So there is no problem, but because Mashhur said that mu'tad and غير mu'tad doesn't make difference, so we said ihtiyat wajib is to avoid. So therefore, if liquid, so some droplets go inside, because sometimes maybe it is coming out but then evaporates. If it evaporating, that's different. But if as liquid goes down, then it's a problem. I don't know, did I answer your question, or your question was?
Yes, yes, thank you. It's just he was arguing, it seemed, if I understood correctly, that even if we do say that غير معتاد is
yes, because he is talking about gas, not about droplets.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Sheikh, just on point 3, when